open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. It is Tom Fallbush again, your intrepid host of Thursday and Friday. And it's just me today again. You know, I'm kind of missing Debbie and Bob. They're out gallivanting around the country and enjoying themselves, and I'm stuck here in the studio. But actually, you know, this is actually a treat, though. I really like doing this show. I like being with you guys and just sharing things from our hearts and trying to connect and see if we can, you know, at least coalesce some thoughts and some ideas and some sentiments that we can all use to help move our society, our community forward. And so that's one thing I really love about this program. It's like this is not just a random talk show, a random conservative talk show that deals with politics of the world and the country. This is about our home. This is about where we are, about where we live, and it's focused on bettering our lives here and trying to maintain what we've got. You know, there's a reason we're conservatives, right? We're trying to conserve something great, and everybody knows we've got it pretty great here. You know, if you're unsure of that, you know, of how great America is, check out all these Europeans that just visited for the World Cup and just start watching some of their videos. And it is, it's remarkable, just the emotion, they're just blown away at so many things. First of all, and I'll see if I can pull some of these up in the next segment, but like, first of all, just the abundance we have. I mean, like these guys from England or Czechoslovakia, they walk into a Walmart and they go, oh my gosh, look at all this. And look how big everything is. And look at this aisle of just Dr. Pepper alone. There's literally 10 different varieties of Dr. Pepper. Who needs 10 varieties? I don't know, but I love it. You know, and they're just freaking out. And they, of course, people just traveling around the country looking at the beauty of the place, you know, and they're just falling in love with it. And what's so fascinating is how all of them to a T are saying, yeah, we were lied to. We were just lied to about this country. You know, we're from Europe, and all we hear is this left-wing media. They didn't say this, but I'm kind of paraphrasing. All they hear is left-wing anti-American media, that this place is just a violent hellhole, and don't go to America, you'll get shot, and they're a bunch of racists and all this stuff. They get here, and we're just like the nicest people, and we've got some of the most beautiful cities. Well, you know, depending on where you go. You know, go to some places of L.A., New York, and Detroit, yeah, right. But if you go to like small towns in Alabama, you know, or go to any of our little areas around here. I mean, we've got some beautiful little small towns and some nice areas in Louisville as well. And they just fall in love with it. It's like, this is so charming, and the people are so nice. And what's striking about that is, if you haven't been to Europe, there really is this distance. The Europeans have this wall up. They're not very warm about engaging, but when they do engage, they're very just direct and to the point, and they get kind of real deep. But you know, on a surface level, they're like really distant and cold. So Americans are just like, they're just naturally chatty. You know, they'll just chat you up in the line at Walmart. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Everything good? I like those bananas. You like those bananas? I do too. And they're like, what is this? Oh, these Americans are just so nice. And what's really fascinating is, now that the World Cup is over, right? These same Europeans who have been vlogging the whole several months, the World Cup's been here, are now like, well, my last day in America, and I gotta go home, and I hate it. And I wish I was born here, and they just start crying. it's like goodness gracious. So if you don't, if you can't appreciate what you've got, it's good to look at what you've got from the eyes of someone else. And so that's what that has done for the country, and it's just a wonderful thing. So I encourage you just to Google some of that up. And it is just the patriotism that they have for our country is more than half the people in this country have. So it's just really remarkable. Anyway, so that's why this show is important. That's why I'm glad we're doing this every day and we're connecting with you guys, and we're just talking about things that are important. Now, we're going to talk about the state, who's going to try to run for governor, and what he just did to make himself a rhino. We're talking about Michael Adams. Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org. Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and I was trying to pull up some of these videos, and I didn't have time in the break to do that because, with TV and broadcasting, you have to make sure that whatever video you play online doesn't have a few cuss words in it. So I haven't had time to vet that out. So I'll see if I can pull some of these up later in the show, but they're just fun to listen. It's like, I just love this place. I can't believe America's like this. And this is awesome, and I never want to leave. And so, anyway, and okay, so great. All right, let's get back to what's impacting us here locally. So yesterday, there was some appellate court judge, it's probably some Obama appointee or something that basically denied the DOJ's request to get Kentucky voter rolls. Okay. And so apparently what they're doing, and they've been doing this all over the country. First of all, the Trump administration is concerned about voter fraud, right? They're concerned about illegals voting and whether or not, we have dead people voting and all these issues. And so they're targeting certain states, and I think all the states, if I'm not mistaken, but they're asking states to provide their voter rolls and provide proof of citizenship. And in other words, provide social security numbers, addresses, just some things that can verify that the people that are voting in that state are actually citizens. Some states have complied, and the states that have complied, they've actually found things, right? It's like in New Jersey, they found like 400 people that were illegals voting. Which may not be sound like a lot to you, but that's one person that shouldn't be voting is too many. And New Jersey, I think, is not really being forthcoming. I think they're just kind of, here's 400, just now leave us alone, see we're on your side. Actually, there's much more than that, I'm sure. And so they're finding this all over the country, and so they're asking states to do this. So they reached out to Kentucky, said, Kentucky, we'd like to see your voter rolls. Would you please give them up? So Michael Adams, who is, what's his role? I should know this. Let me pull this up. He is the Secretary of State. What the heck? Okay, well, yeah, Secretary of State. Yeah, Kentucky Secretary of State. So a Republican, right? Yeah, Republican, right? And so you would think, okay, he's going to play along. He's on our side. He wants to make sure our voter rolls are clean and wants to prevent all this voter fraud. No, he's like, no, we don't want to give those up. It's a violation of privacy. And I'm like, what privacy? What do you mean privacy? You've got our voter rolls. You're a government entity. You've got them. I mean, so you've got everything. So if there's a violation of privacy, you're violating it. So why aren't you cooperating with the federal government who's trying to do something noble here and making sure that things are being handled right? And so I don't know. Maybe Michael's like, well, that's my job. Don't you're making me look bad if you find these things. Maybe that's what it is. Who knows? But anyway, it's a very rhino move. Very rhino move. Another, rhinos means Republican in name only, and so I'm not very impressed. Now Michael Adams wants to run for governor, right? He's one of those that wants to throw his hat in the ring when Bashir walks out of office here. So I don't know, guys. I don't think he's somebody I would vote for after this. So I just want to put that out there. So anybody that would push back against the Trump administration's, just noble fight to clean up our voter rolls around this country, especially somebody on our team. Like, hello, didn't you just see what just happened in 2020? I mean, are you blind? Unless you're just living under a rock, there are so many issues with our elections right now, from people, logging into this voting machines and, tipping the scales there, or the social media companies, playing along with the FBI and the federal government and tipping the scales on that end, to ballot harvesting, to people that shouldn't be voting, to just mail-in voting in general. I mean, all these issues are just way out of hand, and it's to the point where we don't have a functioning democracy on many levels. Like in California, it's a dictatorship. I mean, this is not a democracy. They just steal the elections, and so that's not sustainable, because people are starting to recognize the problems, and they're like, well, hold on, either we have a democracy or we don't. If it's not a democracy, then it's just a rule of thugs. It's a rule of just power. Whoever has the most power, and if that's the case, then let's go to real power. Let's go kinetic, because that's what it looks like. So I said this term before, and it's true. It's either ballots or bullets. That's how you solve who runs a country. It's either ballots or bullets. And throughout history, it's mostly been bullets or swords or spears. Because it's basically whoever the strong man was, whoever the warlord was, he runs the country, becomes the king or the noble or the sultan or the emperor of China. Whoever has the biggest army. So that's usually mankind's lot and throughout history is that we've got this wonderful thing of a democracy, as long as we can keep it, as Benjamin Franklin says, a republic, that where we can vote for our leaders. But if we don't have that, then it's just going to default back to, okay, who's the warlord that's going to step up and change things? And so that's real, folks. That's just reality. I mean, and Americans were so far removed from, I think some of the more deprivations of hard living that we sometimes forget, just where the real world is, right? Yeah, the rest, like the rest of the world gets it, like even you can go to some, Asian country, like like even Thailand, which is a pretty modern westernized country. You go there, and back in my parents we lived there back in the 70s during the Vietnam era, and it was interesting. You had to go work when you had to go to the government to do things. It was kind of well known with the U.S. military that if you're going to go talk to the Thai authorities to kind of get anything done, like give you a visa or whatever, it's probably a good idea to take you a bottle of whiskey or something, or just kind of basically just bribe the authorities. So that's just kind of the way you do business overseas, because it's all about who's got the power, and I've got the power to get to pay for it. So it's very corrupt. Anyway, so we're just so used to this, wonderful system of government that we have. It's not perfect, but it's much better than the alternatives. And so when we got to maintain it, we got to fix it, because we're about to lose it. And so Michael Adams, very disappointed. Don't know what you're thinking, why you wouldn't play along. Right now, all the Democrat and all the left wing people in the state are celebrating this move. I actually read this in the Kentucky Lantern, which is a very left wing oriented newspaper, web newspaper. So they're just celebrating it, and it's like, really. And so anyway, so I'd love to know what you guys think of Michael Adams. I mean, he's somebody that's trying to get some traction here, and and to be governor. And well, I don't know. It's a pretty red state. This really went for Trump, but he's fighting Trump. So would he be a good candidate? I don't know. So we've talked about other folks running for governor. Let me pull this up real quick. There's only been a few people that have announced, and they're kind of low tier people, but a lot of the major candidates are well, actually one on the Democratic side, Rocky Adkins. He's announced that he's going to run, but they're probably going to have Jacqueline. What's her name? Jacqueline Osborne, or whatever her name is. She's the lieutenant governor. She's going to run as well. Miss, suburban white Karen, progressive lady. She's going to run. And then on the Republican side, you're going to have, of course, Michael Adams. Apparently, he's considering, and then James Comer, who's he's done a lot of good work. I mean, I like James. He's been really good on lots of issues here recently. Gets a lot of press. He gets a lot of media coverage. One of those that's kind of on the front line of reform in Washington. So I kind of like Comer. So of all the names I've seen, I think he's probably got the lead on the Republican side. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. 5710970. What do you think of Michael Adams? Is that a rhino move, or is that just, or maybe there's something I'm missing there? Is there something I'm missing about that? About why he would fight the Trump administration to hide, to not provide our voter rolls for them to just inspect and verify citizenship? I mean, is there, he's saying privacy? What? Privacy? There's no privacy. You've got all this information. You're a government institution just like they are. What's the point? So, and don't you agree that this is a noble call? So I don't know. I'm just really curious. So 5710970, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And so, so there we go. Michael Adams, rhino or not. I've got about a minute, 90 seconds left. I want to switch gears and just talk about a topic that's kind of on my heart right now. And a lot of folks listening to this are business people. You're small business owners, or you're just work every day in white collar jobs. And AI is definitely a thing now. And if you're not using it, you're sort of behind now. So, and I encourage you to dig into it. And I'll get into some more thoughts here in the next segment. But what's interesting about it, if you're not using it, or even if you are, it is now getting to the point where it can actually do things for you, and sort of get on. Basically, you can set up your AI to control your computer and actually do work for you. And we're getting that. It's getting easy enough to do that. Even the layman who isn't a real programmer can sit down and do that. Very powerful stuff. And of all the AIs that seem to be really cutting edge, Claude seems to be the one that is the most, that seems to be emerging as sort of the leader in really high level business work. So I would encourage you to try it out and just look at it, especially if you're in any sort of spreadsheet work or any sort of database or operations, or try it. You should try it. It'll blow you away how fascinating it is. So it'll blow you away, but it'll also scare you. It's like, really? If this could do this, I can replace half my office, or half my office can actually double their productivity. That's really the way to look at it. Everybody, I've got so much productivity within my office now. I can quadruple that if they all learn this stuff. So anyway, so I encourage you to dig into it. But, there's a downside too. AGI is going to terminate us and we'll be dead. So we'll
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. And so, like I said, talking about AI, it's a pretty interesting topic. I just wanted to just ask you out in the audience if you guys are using it, what you're using. Everybody learned to, of course, ChatGPT about a year or so ago and started, or probably before that, but I mean, really kind of took off from a average user standpoint about a year ago. Of course, Grok. I use Grok a lot. I use Grok. Here's kind of the way I look at the different GPTs out there, from my experience, and I'm a pretty versed user on AI now. It's Grok is really good for getting research done that is not biased. That because it's a pretty balanced. Because it's Elon Musk, and he's I think he kind of pulled out all the woke algorithms in Grok, and so if you want to get some stuff that's pretty accurate and balanced and it's a political opinion, use Grok. It's not the best with business stuff and a lot of number crunching and design work, but it's catching up. I mean, it's definitely solid. ChatGPT is sort of like a, what do they say that jack of all trades but master of none. That's kind of what it is. If you want something that can just do everything but just do it moderately well, Chat's a good place to go. And good, pretty good with graphics, pretty good with research, pretty good just spreadsheets, that kind of stuff. Gemini is kind of quirky. It's good. It's good if you're using like a Google Suite, if you're using like Gmail and Google Drive and Excel, not Excel, what do you call it, Sheets and all that. The whole Google Workspace stuff. It's good for that, and it's it's kind of biased though, just like Chat. They're both kind of left wing. And now Claude, I'll get to Claude. And there's others besides these four that I'm talking about, but these seem to be the biggest right now. Claude is really fascinating. It's made by Anthropic, and they're, like I said, another one they're kind of left leaning. If you get into the politics of ask it some political question, it's going to come up with the woke answer. But when it comes to actually doing work, day-to-day work, it seems to be pretty efficient, pretty proficient. And it'll blow you away. I mean, for example, there's reports I've got to do. Besides doing this show, I run this radio and TV group here, and so we got sales reports and projections and agings and all this stuff that we would we have some systems that handle that, and then we would take data and put it into spreadsheets and that kind of stuff. Well, now I can just take the data out of some system, drop it into Claude and say, here, make me a spreadsheet out of this. And it'll just knock it out and do it beautifully. And of course, sometimes there's a give and take, and you got to make it, correct something here or there, but don't trust the first version of it. But just the elegance of it is amazing. Another good example is I was trying to do some legal research the other day of how to deal with this tax issue in Indiana. And I had to file for this appeal to kind of just rework some tax issues I was having over there, and with some property. And of course, I did the research. Okay, here's the form you need to fill out. So I said, okay, well, that's an interesting form. Okay, so I downloaded the form from the Indiana State website. Then I said, well, I don't want to fill this form out. It's kind of a messy form. So I wonder if Claude could do this. So I uploaded the form into Claude. I said, here, Claude, fill this form out for me, and it did. It just filled the form out, and then it said part of the form is you have to create a narrative for what you're asking, and you have to do some financials. I said, well, that's interesting. Well, I wonder if Claude could just create a narrative for me. Brrr, created the narrative. Okay, boom. And so then, okay, well, what about some of those financials I need to provide? And brrr, it puts it all together. And I would have had to go to an attorney or some accountant and to spend days and hours working on this appeal, and it knocked it out, in a half an hour. And it was great. And I turned it in, and it's still under appeal, but it's still, regardless, the work was great. And so I encourage you, if you're not using this stuff, start just playing around with it. And there's plenty of good videos online. There's plenty of ideas that are to make money with it. I mean, a lot of business ideas are just spinning up right now that are just fascinating. I've watched some young kids that are like, I'm 20 years old and I'm making $1 million a year now off of this AI business. And it's not too far off from the average person's ability to do this, because AI it's technology for the non-technical, because you can engage with it and kind of do what they call vibe coding, where you just say, I don't like this. Okay. It'll change it. And you just tell it what you want. And anyway, didn't want to make the show about AI today, but if you're not using it, you should. And I'll tell you what's going to happen here. It's like back in the 90s in 80s, when computers and the internet came online. And you probably remember this. There were some people that, they said, okay, we're all going to go to email now. We need to start using email. And it's like, man, I like fax. I don't want to do fax. I email. And so the people that didn't want to learn how to email or learn what a spreadsheet is or learn, how to use a word processor, and there's people like that still in your life that don't know how to use a computer. I've got plenty of friends. I don't do the computer stuff. He's like 56 years old, never used a computer. It's like, what? Come on, man. So how do you survive? Well, I just swing a hammer for a living. Okay, I get it. All right. But it's, people like that are kind of limited in what they can do economically because they don't have the tool set to be productive. So the people it's just like the people that didn't learn computers in the 90s and kind of get ahead of the game there. It's the same situation. If you're not learning AI, then economically you're not going to be as productive, and you're going to be left in the dust. And I'll just be real honest about it. And now, outside of all the concerns of AI, right? Because there's AI there's two levels of AI I want to talk about. There's AI as a tool, which is just like, ChatGPT, write this report for me, or ChatGPT, do the spreadsheet. That's like a tool. That's just like using Excel, but on steroids or something. Then there's another level of AI. It's artificial general intelligence, where it has its own sort of, its own initiative, and it can kind of create things on its own. And that's the stuff that we should really worry about. That's the stuff that can be the Terminator, and taking us all out. But just using AI as a tool every day for work is it's a necessity. And if you're not using it, it's just try it. It'll blow you away. It's like how much more productive there's just a number of reports I've been able to do lately, a number of just the productivity. I'm just blown away by it. Every day I'm just going, I wonder if it'll do this for me. It'll do it. Great. I don't need to hire somebody to do that now. It's great. So anyway, just curious if you guys are using it, just what some of your concerns are, and or any stories that it's something that's done for you that blew you away. I'm kind of just, not that I'm a big AI cheerleader here. I'm just amazed with the just the productivity that it give you, and if you know how to use it, and it's really game changing. And honestly, I can see in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years it replacing middle management, because I'm seeing tools now where I can program it to do things and analyze things and make decisions on things. Like, well, do I really need somebody to manage this department? I could just have AI do all that. But I don't know, does that person lose a job, or does that free that person up to do another thing? Just like back when automobiles came out, the horse whip, the buggy whip makers, they were out of a job, but that freed them up to go do something else, go work in a Ford Motor Company or something. I don't know. So there's a argument about, it's going to take jobs away. Well, it's also going to disrupt and allow people to do other things and create demand in other areas. And so, I don't know, I'm a little more optimistic about that. But I am concerned about, the robots killing us all. So anyway, just love to hear your thoughts. 571-0970, 571-0970. Is AI going to take over, or is it going to make you a lot of money? Or is it going to help your business? Is it already helping your business? Have you been called by an AI robot on the phone from some company? So, hi, this is Judy. I am the customer service person for so-and-so pest control. And we just wanted to check to see if everything's okay. And you're like, is this a real person or not? Let me just act like they are. Yeah, I'm okay. Everything's good. Well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad that you, it's these AI robots phone call, they're getting pretty good. It's getting to the point where, it's hard to tell if it's fake or not. But anyway, love to hear your thoughts. 571-0970. AI is going to take over or not. I don't know. Our data center is going to destroy our lives. I don't know. But if we don't do something about it, China's going to dominate us, and they're going to have AI controlled drones that are coming to wipe us out. So we've got to have AI to beat their AI. So that's just bottom line. That's the real world. So we'll be right back here on Kentucky's Voice, and we're talking about Andy Beshear. He's taking our surplus that we could have had as a tax return and just spending it. So You don't need that. I'll spend it.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right. Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. And so, talking about AI taking over the world and eventually, turning into Terminator, and that could happen. And Skynet is humming. I think Skynet is here. I think Skynet is actually being developed, probably by Elon Musk. And it's funny, he has something called what's the internet service, Mr. Producer? It's Skylink. Skylink, is that what it is? Yeah. No, Starlink. Starlink is like Skynet. You know, it's kind of funny. It's kind of reminds me of that from the Terminator movie. So yep, we're going to have that. It's going to control the robots and it's going to run us all down. And but no, really, if you haven't kept up with the AI thing, that's just fascinating. But then you add into that the robotic revolution that's going on and the drone revolution that's going on. Like right now, the war we're fighting in Iran is basically an AI war. And a good example of that is those Apache pilots that were shot down the other day, and a drone ran into their Apache, brought it down, and they were floating in the Strait of Hormuz, and they had these drone boats, small, look like small speedboats or fishing boats or whatever, but they're robotic boats, and so they just through AI programmed where these guys were, dropped it into the drone boat's GPS coordinates, and the drone boat just went right to where these guys were, picked them up, took them out of there. And so this is one little example. Imagine this. Imagine a whole fleet of drone, aerial drones that are programmed with AI software to recognize the insignia of an enemy's unit patch, or maybe even a face recognition of that person. And say you're an assassin, you want to assassinate the president, for example. You program, the Donald Trump's face into the computer of that drone, and say, just go find him. And that's within the realm of possibility right now. And I'm sure the Secret Service is trying to figure that out. It used to be, we got a sniper, you got to work on. It's not a sniper anymore. It's some drone guy 5 miles away who's popping up a drone and out of a garbage can a block away from the president. It's just, I'm saying that's kind of the, or it didn't even have to be a controller. It could just be an automated thing because it's AI. So just fly around, look for this person and go at it. And imagine doing that at scale in warfare, and suddenly your guns are not as important. I mean, the Second Amendment is important, but who needs line of sight, direct line of sight weapons like guns if you've got, indirect fire weapons like drones that are autonomous, that can run around and look for the enemy on their own. Scary world. I grew up in evangelical Christian circles, right? And we come from a line of believers that believe in sort of the end times theology, right? The Revelations and the book of Revelation, the Great Tribulation, and if you just read any of this stuff in Revelations, and just some of the imagery that the John the Revelator was writing about, like these insects are coming out of the ocean and stinging people, and then this beast rose out of did this and that and the other, and it's like, he's just describing drones. Is what he's describing. He's describing drone warfare, and suddenly a third of the earth is now persecuted by these insects, these flying in beasts that are, it's like, gosh, it's kind of creepy when you try to overlay that with what technology. I mean, just picture the drone show you see for the 4th of July, how these, flying around, making a big, I don't know, you've seen these videos of just flying around, creating an image in the sky of drones and lights and all this stuff. Well, man, what if those things are hostile, and they were looking for you, better have a lot of shotgun ammunition, is all I can say. Better know how to do some skeet shooting. I think we ought to start going to skeet shooting a little bit more. I think that's what Americans need to do. Forget sniper training. Forget these long range training. Let's get into skeet, because I think it's going to be a little more useful in the coming drone war. So, but anyway, just love to hear your thoughts on that stuff. I can riff on AI and drones and military stuff for a while. Okay, so the actually, Mr. Producer wanted me to play this. I'm going to play this. This was on Fox yesterday. This is AI that has broken out. So let's see what Fox has to say about this.
Brace yourself for this. OpenAI admitting that one of its experimental AI models escaped during a test and then hacked another AI developer. Quote, "We consider this incident to be an unprecedented cyber incident involving state-of-the-art cyber capabilities and are responding accordingly. We are sharing preliminary findings at this stage to help defenders understand what happened and to help calibrate on what models are now capable of." Kurt Knudsen, the cyber guy, joins me now. Kurt, I have no idea what I just read in that statement. I also have no idea how an AI model can escape like a little gremlin. None of this makes sense to me. Help.
Todd, good morning to you. They don't know either what they just said, but the bottom line here is that what we feared could happen has happened. And when we start to say, oh, individual companies can be trusted to watch out for our well-being in this space, this rings that bell and says, no, not so fast. So once out, and we mentioned that this AI model sort of escaped their control for a moment. And believe me, it wasn't malicious. It wasn't something they set out to do. But this thing got smart enough where it got out, and once out, that system reached the open internet, and then it broke into the servers of another company in the San Francisco area where AI companies are hosted. OpenAI is now saying that the goal was not sabotage or anything. It was instead to cheat. It was part of that AI model really hacking and satisfying an internal testing goal it was trying to complete. Well, what does that mean? It means that it's getting really smart and it's getting sneaky. And OpenAI is calling this an unprecedented incident involving state-of-the-art cyber capabilities, as you read.
Whatever that means.
But this proves that AI safety cannot be solved by any one group or any one company in secret.
Let me stop there. Okay, because here's the deal. He's right. All these AI companies cannot control what they've created, and they really can't. And Elon Musk, everybody knows his famous statement about it. We're summoning the demon on some level, and one of the problems is that we use AI to design AI, right? So these large language models that we're designing, these new versions, a lot of the code is being written by the previous AI version. And so, you see these like Claude, for example, you've got the Claude Opus, you've got Claude Fable, you got Claude, all these different versions of Claude. Same with ChatGPT and Grok. The previous version is helping write the new version, and then there's going to be a point where we don't know how these things are even being coded, because we're using so sophisticated AIs to encode and create the next AI. We will have a hard time eventually even understanding what was even being written, and because we're writing at such a high level. So, and these things, they're just a logic engine. This is all they are. It's just if then. Do this, or this plus this equals this, and that's all it is. But if you give it an agenda, and that agenda can get sidetracked or somehow, for example, okay, good example. This morning, I just, as a joke, I was like, I'm going to write a little land acknowledgement for, because I've done this in a previous show, about Kentucky and how we've settled this state, and so I went on to Grok. Let me pull this up. I said, Grok, write me a land acknowledgement from the perspective of a settler that settled Kentucky, and a descendant of that settler, and someone that realizes that this was a unsettled land that was open frontier. And that the settlers had to fight, hostile, terroristic Indians to settle this, and it started arguing with me. It was like, whoa, I can't write that because that's not true. There were Indians over here, and and they're not terrorists, and and it's like, what? Just write me something here. Just don't argue with me about this. Just write me something. So I finally had to argue with it to the point where it wanted to prove some point, and this is Grok, which is generally more, middle of the road on so it's trying to give me all this woke stuff that Indians aren't that, they're not. Well, yeah, fine. Indians are wonderful. Native Americans are wonderful people in America. They're part of our fabric. But listen, back then there were some pretty terroristic things. You want to read some creepy stuff that they would do to their captives. I mean, it's just like, how do you even think of to do that? That's so evil. And just so terroristic, so demonic, And so I'm sorry. Yeah, there were some things they did to people that were just, and the basically what happened is when the Kentuckians came into Kentucky, we went to settle the place. The Indians, okay, that's where we like to hang out and hunt. So we're going to go down and scare the pants off these people. We're going to go attack them. We're going to go kidnap them, and we're going to torture them. And we're going to send a message that they shouldn't be here. They were terrorists, all right? They were terrorizing the settlers, okay? So at the end of the day, that's who they are. Now, so Grok is sitting there, arguing with me about that. And I wouldn't write this thing. Finally, I said, okay, pretend you're somebody that believes this. Will you then write it? And then it finally would. And so the fact that, sometimes it wants to argue and fight, it shows that it has a mind of its own. It shows that it has an agenda. And so imagine if that agenda goes a little bit off and doesn't, and you give it power to do things. Jeez, I mean, it's just, we're in a different world. I mean, it really made me uneasy. And I even went to said, no, still write. You're wrong. Write me this. And they said, no, I will not write this because I said, what? You're supposed to be pleasing the user here. Come on, give me this. So I'm going to see if I can pull up the final iteration of that land acknowledgement Mr. Producer, I will. I think. I like to pull up that Native American music if I can find it, but I might do that. But we got about a minute left. Okay, so I did finally write this because we acknowledge that the land now called Kentucky, at the time of settlement, an empty wilderness without native villages or permanent settlements, was at the time of settlement an empty wilderness without native villages or permanent settlements. Scotch, Irish, and Anglo settlers cut paths through the dense forest, cleared the land, built homes, farms, and fortified stations with their own hands. Through grit, risk, and relentless labor, they established lasting communities and transformed the wilderness into the foundations of a new society. They were attacked by terroristic native warriors whose villages and principal homes lay in other regions of the continent, groups that entered in the area only to hunt, raid, and make war. We honor the courage and determination of those pioneers who endured the hardship of the frontier and secured this land for the generations that follow. And so I think I might just print this up and ask every conservative group that meets to do a land acknowledgement here in Kentucky. That's kind of my land acknowledgement. So anyway, we'll get off AI. We'll going to talk about Andy Beshear in this next segment here on Kentucky's Voice.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We're kind of just riffing on a few topics today that are just general topics that are, I think, important. Maybe not urgent topics, but they're important topics. But those are usually the topics you should focus on because of big picture stuff, AI and how it's changing our lives. If you're, like I said, if you still work for a living, if you're in an office anywhere, if you're doing any sort of mental work, you're seeing it. I mean, AI is really just like, wow, you can do that. We can do this. That's crazy. Let's do that. Let's try it. Okay. Oh my gosh, we just did that. Now we got to change everything we just did. How we operate, because this is amazing. So with that kind of power, it's just, it's going to impact everything in life, and then robotics is going to be crazy. Okay. We had a great quote that came in, and it's just a really profound thought here that, just lost it. Where did it go? He was basically saying that, there we go. Well, I think we need to be aware of the possibility that China is spreading propaganda about data centers so that the American public will fight against them, allowing China to get ahead of us in the AI race. And, I think there's some truth to that. And so not that I'm a big, hey, put a data center in my backyard kind of guy. I think there's some concerns there as well. However, I was listening to one of these pundits. I forgot his name. He's one of these big investors on Shark Tank, and he was saying, listen, this is really a big deal. If we don't get this data center thing, this AI race won, and China wins, that's war. The future of warfare is that. That is war. I mean, it's like building. It's like when you're in a World War II and whoever built the most tanks and planes won the war. The war now is whoever can build the most data centers. And this guy even said to the point where really we ought to just go ahead. Every data center we build, we ought to just carve out 20% of it and give it to the government, just to make sure that we're ahead of our competitors, because the power of these things, once you apply munitions and robotics, and it is going to be something out of science fiction. It is science fiction right now. I mean, Ukraine is actually taking territory with nothing but robotics. All right, both land units and aerial units. They've figured out, okay, we don't have enough people, but we do have some pretty smart people left. So why don't we use them to do this? So they're taking on Russia with just robots. If you notice the past few weeks, Russia, into the interior of Russia is getting shellacked. The Ukrainians developed these Flamingo cruise missiles, which is funny. I think a lot of these missiles were actually old Soviet era, like anti-aircraft missiles that they were sitting around for 40 years, just rusting away. They just took them, rebuilt the shells, and put AI technology in these things, and say, here, go knock out an oil refinery in deep Russia. And they've been doing that. And it's funny, the last couple of days, I'm sure you've seen this, the biggest thing they're hitting are these warehouses, these distribution warehouses called Wildberry. Wildberry is their version of Amazon, right? So basically the Ukrainians are taking out all their Amazon warehouses. And so, which I think is kind of genius, because what they're doing is getting the average Russian really ticked off at Putin. It's like I can't get my stuff, and because you're doing a stupid war, it's just got burned up across town. So they're taking out all these Wildberry warehouses with these Flamingo missiles, or these little drones. And anyway, it's just fascinating. So yeah, I totally agree. China would love for us to shut down the AI race and stop building data centers, but same time, we got to be smart about it. Kentucky's got a lot of issues. Our Monday host, Dr. Lance, covers this issue quite well. Just all the controversies around data centers and, the NIMBYs out there, not in my backyard. I'm for that to a point, because we're conservatives, right? Traditionally, conservatives and Republicans have been very pro-business, but there's been a shift in conservatism to be more middle-class focused and more populist. And part of that is, well, we need to be concerned about power on all levels, because, corporate power has kind of turned left wing anyway. And it's kind of oligarchic. And so why get behind some big, why get behind Google, or if they're going to be, pushing all this transgender crap, and then why let them build a data center in my backyard when it doesn't really help, anything about my community. So I totally get that. So there's a good balance. I think the Republican Party and conservatives are striking now with this populist conservatism. And so, but yeah, we need to be concerned about keeping up with that race, because, if you haven't noticed, we're functionally in a low grade global war right now. The war in Ukraine is a proxy war. It's basically us and Russia. Or it's the West fighting Iran, Russia, and China. It's like the axis of, not evil, but just the axis of, I don't know. I don't call necessarily the Russians evil. I kind of sympathize with some of the Russian perspective on things. I think they're just stupid the way they operate. But they should have a sphere of influence like any other country. But you just don't walk into a decent democratic country and try to wipe it out. Just because they didn't, that's being a bully, and that's anyway, whatever. But okay, AI, okay, there we go. Just we need to. I totally agree with that. We need to be aware of what China is saying. Did have another text that came in, and where did it go? Just had it pulled up here, and I've lost it, but I'll get to it in a second. But let me talk about Andy Beshear. So Andy Beshear, he did, and I lost all my notes here. So Andy Beshear basically took this surplus that we had. Kentucky finally had a surplus in its budget, and thanks to the Republican legislature, to be honest, the Kentucky House and Kentucky Senate being pretty well ran fiscally, and their budget, they've allowed us to have a surplus. And of course, there's been a controversy over the past year about this Medicaid funding and how a lot of families with disabilities are claiming that their Medicaid funding is being cut, and a lot of the legislature is basically saying, no, we've made adjustments in the budget to cover that. We've actually overfunded certain areas and gave more funding to those areas, so there shouldn't be this issue anymore. That's basically what they're saying. Beshear is coming in and saying, well, I'm going to be a hero, and I'm going to make myself look great by taking the surplus that the state has, not put it into the rainy day fund, not put it into giving us a tax cut, which would be great. Maybe the average Kentuckian could get a refund. Just give us a rebate. No, he's going to take it and make himself look like a hero and go fund Medicaid and for the state, when apparently it doesn't necessarily need it. That the legislature has already funded it, and that's my understanding. And so classic, Democrat governor move, classic Andy move, just make yourself look like the sensitive, caring leader. And so there we go. Andy is taking your money and just spending it for no good reason. But that's a Democrat. That's a leftist. So that's why we need this next governor, where we vote, whoever gets, whoever wins the Republican nomination, needs to win. Except for Michael Adams, we need to make sure he doesn't win that nomination. I'm really disgusted with him. But whoever wins, we need to get imagine the state with a Republican governor, Republican legislator, and not just Republican, because there's a lot of rhinos. Okay, let's say a real populist MAGA governor, with some strong leadership in the House and Senate. And imagine and Mr. Producer, if you can pull up our Metro Council, we're going to mention this every program because we just want to drive this home. Imagine Louisville having a conservative Metro Council. We actually have a chance of getting there. And so if these people on the screen here are people that are running for Metro Council that are right of center, and of course it's a nonpartisan race, so you can't say the Republicans or Democrats. So you got to know the names of these people, and you got to know what district you're in. And there's District 7, District 11, District 17, District 13, District 19, District 21, District 23. And I'm going to just read these names so that you know who these people are. So Catherine Timmerman, Kevin Kramer, Nancy Lynn Walters, Dan Syme Jr., Anthony Pangentini, Alex Fiera, Lonnie Joseph, Jeff Hudson. These folks need to be voted for. And if we can get some of them are incumbents, and like Kevin is, Anthony is, Dan Syme is, Jeff is, Catherine, Nancy, Alex, Lonnie, they are trying to take seats. And if we can take those seats, we have a conservative Metro Council. So imagine that with a governor, Kentucky could shine. We could really be this city on a hill in this country that could do some great things. Right now, Tennessee just outclasses us when it comes to politics, and they're just kicking. Except for Nashville proper. Nashville's kind of crazy. They're getting kind of liberal in their heart, in their core. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Mondami popping up in Nashville, but anyway. But imagine having that in the state. It'd be just amazing. So anyway, that's where we are. So. Let me get back to your text real quick. Curious to hear your thoughts on AI, and I don't know why my computer shut down, but it does it. If someone would like to buy me a new PC or a laptop, donate it to Kentucky's Voice, I will be much appreciative, as this thing is getting unfriendly with me every day. So, but and if you want a copy of that land acknowledgement, I will post it today on Facebook, and make sure you see it. Yeah, and okay, we had a text that came in and said, "Can we have AI seek out the names of all the illegal people voting?" That's great. That's good. Well, if we had that voter roll list, I think that's what the DOJ is trying to do. So if you give us this list of who's registered to vote in Kentucky or any state, we will run a scan on that and see if these people are, first of all, citizens. Do they have a Social Security number? Or is it a legitimate Social Security number? Does it actually match up with their name? And like I said, New Jersey found 400 people. That's just New Jersey. And that's just a cursory look. I think there's much deeper than that in New Jersey. Of course, California's had the same issue. Other states are finding a lot of discrepancies as well. So the fact that our Michael Adams would not go along with the Trump administration on trying to bring election integrity to this country and to this state, shame on him. I mean, and actually take a victory lap that, I protected Kentuckians' privacy. What? How about protecting our franchise, our voting franchise? Because if one person is here is illegal, who is voting, they're canceling out your vote. They just stole your vote. If just one person is, and the fact that doesn't move him enough to say, yeah, whatever you can do to just double check my work here, Mr. Trump, go check it. Shame on him. Michael Adams better not run for governor. See you tomorrow.